3 weeks ago, I was at my local grocery store and noticed something weird. The cooking oil section was half empty, but nobody seemed to care. People were walking right past those empty shelves like it was totally normal. That's when it hit me. Most Americans have no idea what's coming. See, while everyone's distracted by politics and social media drama, something much more serious is happening behind the scenes. Food distribution networks are collapsing in real time, and by late August, we're looking at shortages that'll make 2020 look like a practice run. I've been tracking this stuff for months, reading agricultural reports, connecting with farmers, talking to people who actually move food from farms to your table. And here's what's terrifying. The warning signs are everywhere, but hardly anyone's paying attention. The people who are, they're already quietly securing these 9 critical items while supplies last. Number 5 on this list is in every household with infants, but production capacity is still broken from 2022 and about to get catastrophically worse. And number 9, it's hidden in 70% of everything you eat. And when it disappears, grocery stores are going to look like war zones. So, have you spotted any weird shortages at your stores lately? Comment below. It helps all of us track what's happening in real time. Item 1. Cooking oils. Alright, let's start with something that's already happening, but most people haven't connected the dots yet. Cooking oils are about to become scarce as gold. Ukraine and Russia produce about 80% of the world's sunflower oil, and with ongoing conflict, those exports have basically stopped. Meanwhile, drought conditions in major soybean regions have cut yields by 25% this year. My grocery distributor contact in Texas told me wholesale cooking oil prices have tripled since January, and suppliers are warning that August delivery might not happen at all. Here's the kicker. Cooking oil isn't just for frying. It's in everything. Salad dressings, mayonnaise, baked goods, snack foods. When cooking oils disappear, entire categories of processed foods disappear with them. Stock up on shelf-stable oils now. Coconut oil, olive oil in dark bottles, even ghee. Because when cooking oil becomes unavailable, home cooking basically becomes impossible. Item 2. Wheat-based products. Wheat production is facing what agricultural experts call a multi-front crisis. Drought conditions are destroying crops across Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma, America's breadbasket, with yields down 30 to 40% from last year. Transportation costs for moving wheat have doubled, and several major flour mills have shut down due to profitability issues. When it costs more to process wheat than you can sell flour for, mills just stop operating. Agricultural reports project bread prices could hit $8 to $10 per loaf by August, assuming you can find it. But it's not just bread. Pasta, crackers, cereals, baking flour, anything made from wheat gets affected. The psychological impact of bread shortages is massive. Bread represents normalcy, routine, comfort. When people can't find bread, that's when real panic sets in. Item 3. Eggs. Alright, let's talk about something that's already happening, but about to get catastrophically worse. Eggs. And I'm not just talking about expensive eggs, I'm talking about no eggs. Avian flu has been devastating poultry farms across the country. We've lost over 50 million birds this year alone. But here's what most people don't understand. It takes 18 to 20 weeks to replace a laying hen flock. Even if farms started rebuilding today, we wouldn't see normal egg production until early 2026. But it gets worse. Feed costs for chickens have skyrocketed because of grain shortages. Many small farmers are actually choosing to cull their flocks because it's cheaper than feeding them. I talked to a farmer in Iowa who's been raising chickens for 30 years, and he told me he's never seen anything like this. Here's the kicker that nobody's talking about. Eggs aren't just breakfast food. They're in mayonnaise, baked goods, pasta, ice cream, thousands of processed foods. When eggs disappear, entire manufacturing processes shut down. My friend Lisa, who works at a major food processing plant, told me they're already reformulating recipes to remove eggs because they can't guarantee supply. That means products you've eaten your whole life are about to taste completely different if they're available at all. The smart preppers I know are already buying powdered eggs and learning to use egg substitutes because fresh eggs are about to become a luxury item that most families simply can't afford. Item 4. Rice. Here's something that's going to shock you because rice seems so basic, so reliable. But we're looking at rice shortages that could affect every household in America by late August. First, you've got extreme weather destroying rice crops in Arkansas, Louisiana, and California, the major rice-producing states. Flooding in some areas, drought in others. Farmers are telling me they're seeing crop losses of 40 to 50% compared to normal years. But here's where it gets really scary. India, which exports about 40% of the world's rice, just announced export restrictions to protect their domestic supply. Thailand and Vietnam are considering similar moves. When major exporters stop selling rice internationally, global prices explode. I was talking to this grain trader last week who's been in the business for 25 years. And you know what he told me? He said rice futures are trading at levels he's never seen before. And institutional buyers, the companies that supply grocery stores, are already having trouble securing inventory for August delivery. But here's the part that should terrify every family. Rice is the primary food source for over half the world's population. When rice becomes scarce, people get desperate fast. We're not just talking about higher prices. We're talking about empty shelves and rationing. The smart money is buying rice in bulk right now while it's still available. Food-grade buckets, Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, the whole setup, because rice might be the difference between eating and not eating by late summer. Item 5. Baby formula. This next one is going to hit close to home for a lot of families, and honestly, it makes me angry that we're even in this situation. Baby formula shortages are about to get catastrophically worse, and most parents have no idea what's coming. We never fully recovered from the formula shortages of 2022. Production capacity is still below normal levels, and now we're seeing new problems stack on top of the old ones. Supply chain disruptions, ingredient shortages, and quality control issues are creating what pediatricians are calling a perfect storm for infant nutrition. I talked to a pediatrician last month who told me something that still keeps me up at night. She said, "Parents think the formula crisis is over, but we're about to see shortages that make 2022 look mild, and this time, there might not be quick solutions." Here's what's happening behind the scenes. Key ingredients for formula production are becoming scarce. Specific vitamins, minerals, and proteins that babies need for proper development are in short supply globally. When formula manufacturers can't source these ingredients, production just stops. My friend Jennifer, who works in hospital nutrition, told me they're already seeing parents diluting formula to make it last longer, which is extremely dangerous for infant development. But families are getting desperate when they can't find formula anywhere. If you have infants or are expecting, you need to stock up now. Not just 1 or 2 cans, I'm talking about a serious supply. Because when formula disappears from shelves, there are no substitutes that are safe for babies. Item 6. Coffee. All right, here's one that's going to affect 64% of Americans personally. And honestly, the psychological impact might be worse than the practical one. Coffee shortages are coming, and they're going to hit harder than most people can imagine. Climate change is destroying coffee crops in Brazil, Colombia, and other major producing regions. We're seeing droughts, floods, and temperature extremes that coffee plants simply can't survive. Plus, a fungal disease called coffee rust is spreading through plantations faster than farmers can control it. But here's where it gets really scary from a supply chain perspective. Coffee has to be shipped globally, and shipping costs have tripled in the last year. Many smaller coffee importers are going out of business because they can't afford the logistics. I was talking to a coffee roaster in Seattle who's been in business for 15 years. And you know what he told me? He said his green bean suppliers are already warning him that August shipments might not arrive. Not delayed, might not arrive at all. But here's the kicker that most people don't think about. Coffee withdrawal is real. We're talking about headaches, fatigue, irritability, and depression. When 64% of Americans suddenly can't get their daily caffeine fix, that's a mental health crisis waiting to happen. The smart move is buying green coffee beans and learning to roast them yourself. Properly stored green beans last 2 to 3 years, while roasted coffee goes stale in weeks. It's like having a coffee insurance policy. Item 7. Canned tomatoes. Here's something that sounds boring until you realize it's the foundation of thousands of recipes and processed foods. Canned tomatoes are about to become scarce, and the ripple effects are going to be massive. California produces about 95% of America's processing tomatoes, the ones that become canned tomatoes, tomato sauce, and paste. But California is facing its worst drought in recorded history, and water restrictions are forcing farmers to abandon entire fields. I was reading an agricultural report that projected California tomato yields to drop by 60% this year. 60%. That's not a price hike, that's a supply collapse. But here's where it gets worse. The processing plants that turn fresh tomatoes into canned goods are also struggling. Energy costs for running these facilities have doubled, and several major plants have already announced temporary shutdowns. My friend Mike, who works in food distribution, told me something that changed my perspective completely. He said, "When canned tomatoes disappear, Italian food basically disappears. Pizza sauce, marinara, pasta dishes, all of it relies on canned tomato products." The psychological impact of losing familiar foods is massive. When people can't make spaghetti sauce or pizza, that's when they realize how bad things have gotten. Item 8. Sugar. Let me tell you about something that's going to affect literally every sweet thing you eat. Sugar shortages are coming, and they're going to be worse than most people can imagine. Extreme weather has been devastating sugar crops globally. Sugar cane in Brazil and Louisiana, sugar beets in the Midwest, all seeing massive crop losses. But here's the kicker. Sugar processing is incredibly energy intensive, and energy costs have made many sugar refineries unprofitable. I talked to a sugar industry analyst who told me something that made my jaw drop. He said, "We're looking at potential sugar shortages by August that could last into 2026. This isn't about expensive sugar, this is about no sugar." But here's what most people don't realize. Sugar isn't just for your coffee or baking. It's a preservative, a flavor enhancer, and a key ingredient in thousands of processed foods. When sugar becomes unavailable, entire categories of food disappear. Candy, soft drinks, baked goods, even some medicines rely on sugar. My friend Sarah, who manages a bakery, told me she's already reformulating recipes because she can't guarantee sugar supply beyond July. The smart move is buying sugar in bulk now. Regular white sugar, brown sugar, honey, maple syrup, anything with a long shelf life that can provide sweetness when regular sugar is gone. Item 9. High fructose corn syrup. Here's number 9, and this is the big one that most people never think about, but affects almost everything they eat. High fructose corn syrup, the sweetener that's in 70% of processed foods, is about to become impossible to source. Corn production is facing a perfect storm of problems. Drought in the Midwest, flooding in other regions, and skyrocketing fertilizer costs are cutting yields dramatically. But processing corn into high fructose corn syrup requires massive amounts of energy, and energy costs have made many facilities unprofitable. I was talking to a food processing executive who told me something that should terrify every American family. He said, "When high fructose corn syrup becomes unavailable, we're looking at empty grocery store aisles. Soda, candy, bread, condiments, frozen foods, thousands of products just stop getting made." Here's the kicker that nobody's talking about. There's no easy substitute for high fructose corn syrup in industrial food production. Sugar works differently, honey works differently, artificial sweeteners work differently. Reformulating thousands of products takes months or years. The reality is that entire sections of grocery stores are going to look like ghost towns by late August. Not because stores aren't trying to stock them, but because the products literally don't exist anymore. The bottom line. This isn't about panic buying or clearing store shelves. It's about understanding what's coming and building a reasonable buffer while these items are still available. Start small. Grab an extra item or two each week. Focus on shelf-stable versions when possible. The families who prepare now will be helping neighbors later, not competing with them for scarce resources. If this opened your eyes to what's really coming, subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'm constantly tracking supply chain disruptions and food availability so you don't have to. Drop a comment telling me which shortage concerns you most. Your input helps me understand what information matters most to families like yours. The goal isn't living in fear, it's being prepared so your family has options when systems fail. Your future self will thank you for acting today.